All right. Hey now. Welcome to the Be The Bison Podcast. This is a super special day for the podcast because we have the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, the boss man, Buster Frierson. Thank you for being on.
Man, thanks for having me.
It's not that often. I know you're trying to make it up to Wyoming more, but you've been busy down in Texas. It's good to have you finally up here on the podcast, and this is, one of the reasons Buster came on the podcast is to announce that, and everybody knew it was coming. If you follow us, Buster is going to end up being a co-host on this quite a bit. We're going to start doing a lot more podcasts. He'll host some down from Texas. Candace will also be involved in hosting some podcasts from down in Texas and elsewhere, but Buster's going to be on the road doing a lot of fun stuff, and he's going to be hosting some podcasts with some really good guests that are part of his world. I say it all the time. We started Bison Union when I was working for Buster on his ranch on the ranch he was running down in Texas, 5 years ago. But I am not a cowboy. I am not a rancher. I'm just getting into the bison ranching stuff, but I want to make that real clear. So it's going to be fun to have Buster on, because when you look at Bison Union across the board, anything that has to do with ranch, rodeo, horses, cows, anything, that's Buster's contribution to this. I'm not a cowboy or a rancher. I never will be. That was never my intention. Buster knows it from day one. And I wore a cowboy hat when I worked from him for the utility of a cowboy hat to
Right.
keep from burning my neck and my face off, because it was in Texas in 97-degree weather and you're outside all day. But, I still wear a ball cap when I'm with Buster doing stuff on horses, and people always ask, well, why don't you wear a cowboy hat?
Right.
And the answer is pretty simple. I'm not a cowboy. But Buster, man, I love you. Buster's one of those guys that, and I'm going to put you on the spot here before I shut up and let you talk. But there's been a few people in my life that just, one, have saved my life, changed my life. And I don't mean saved my life in a dramatic way of Buster saved my life. I was in a dark spot. Buster saved my life in the sense that he gave me life. Gave me my life back in the sense of going to work for him for $10 an hour on a ranch. And we'll get into that story, because I know some people have heard it, but those of you that haven't, we'll just talk about our relationship today. But aside from that, Buster's one of those few people that every time I introduce him to somebody new, they will always come back and ask, how's Buster doing? Because he has such a huge effect on people. He walks into a room and his smile and his mannerisms and Buster's like, I can only imagine, Wyatt Earp and all these guys back in the day walking into a bar, and I know, or a saloon, whatever it was. And I know you're shaking your head because you're a humble guy, but I literally walking around Sheridan. Buster's been here 3 times for a day at a time.
Yeah, something like that. 3 or 4 times.
And I still have people ask me every week, how's Buster doing? And that's Buster. That's you. But thank you so much for coming on. Let's start with, what are you up to these days?
Oh, shoot, I appreciate it. Excuse me. Man, I ran that ranch where you worked for me there.
Yes, sir.
I ran it for 15, almost 16 years. And this last summer, I went out on my own and decided, it's time to grow up and kind of see if I could make it on my own in the ranching world, I guess, cowboy world. So I did. I put in my resignation and leased a couple of ranches and bought a few more cows. I had a few cows already and bought a few more cows, so I've been doing that and just kind of day working around, going to different places and helping different ranches do.
What's day working for our folks that don't know much about ranching? I'm not insulting anybody's intelligence.
No.
This is all stuff that
when
I started working for Buster, it took me 6 months to figure out what the hell all these cowboys and cowgirls were talking about. I didn't know what day trash and day working, punching cows. I was like, you actually punch cows? And Buster's like, no, we don't punch cows, but we punch cows. So
So day working in our terms, cowboy terms, is like if you own a ranch and you need some extra workers, I guess, contract workers.
Yeah.
Cowboys, and I'll go to ranches. Different ranches will call me, when they're branding or weaning, or if they need to, preg some cows or do something of the sort, and they need a little extra help. They'll call around and get day workers, and so you go work for a daily wage, and you might work one day, you might work 20 days, you might work 60 days, just depending on, how big a ranch and how much help they need. And so I've been doing that quite a bit, drifting around, just kind of punching cows, day working. And when I say punching cows, you say, we don't literally punch cows with our fist, but you might take a stick as they're going on the truck. And I think that's kind of where the term came from, punching cows. When they would load trucks or load train cars, they punch the cows.
Just give them a little boost.
Just hey, get in there, tell them to go. So that's kind of what punching cows is. And, we use the term as cow punchers or, punching cows, whatever. That's kind of how we talk about
I know
where you're at and what you're doing.
There's a lot of guys and girls, men and women.
No doubt.
That do this for a living.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize. You and I talked about it every day for about a year because I would finish a day of work for you and was just blown away because I used to go to the grocery store and just get my steak, and I took for granted looking at price per pound,
right?
Grabbing a steak or ground beef. Doesn't matter what it is. If it comes from a beef cow, a chicken, bison, it doesn't matter what it is. I took all that for granted. The ability in this country to walk in to a grocery store or a meat market and just grab something, pay in 5 minutes, and be out the door, and then barbecuing it on the grill at home. But when you see that, how much, and I don't want to get into your personal business or finances or anybody else's, but what does somebody typically make in Texas? I know it's different all over the country, but what does somebody in Texas make for a day wage? Somebody that's really good at cowboying.
You're making a lot of guys on average around Texas where I'm at, 150 a day, maybe 200 a day.
But you might drive to a ranch that's 200 miles away.
Yeah, exactly.
That money, they're not paying for your gas.
No, they don't pay for your fuel.
Saddles.
They don't pay for your
horses.
saddles. They don't pay for your tires on your trailer.
Your
shoe and the feed and all that. A lot of ranches, when you do go help them for a day or two, they'll feed your horses.
Right.
And they'll feed you as well, most places. So, there's some ranches that pay 175, some ranches pay 200 a day, and so you try to position yourself where you can go to those better ranches and those bigger ranches that work for 2 weeks at a time, you might work 10 days straight, and it's worth it because you drive out there, it might take you 6 hours. Like I go out west to Balmorhea, which is way, way west to me, about 7.5, 8 hours to the ranch, but I go out there and work for 3 weeks at a time. And, they feed me, they feed my horses, and they're really good place to work for. And so you try to line those deals up. And like what we say, our circle, that's kind of the circle I want to try to line up is those bigger, better paying ranches that you can go stay for 2 or 3 weeks and see some really cool country and punch cows with some really cool hands and really good cowboys. And, you get to ride your horses a lot. And it's just it's a lifestyle, it's not a job. It's what I do, and it's who I am. And it's like I say, it's my lifestyle, that's what I enjoy doing. So that's what I've kind of turned in, gone to. I went from being on a single ranch and tending to every aspect of that ranch, as opposed to now I show up with my 4, 5, 6 head of horses, and the boss man says, hey, this is what we're going to do today. And, I told a guy the other day, he asked me his opinion on something. I was actually working for him, and he asked me his opinion on something, and I said, man, I'm here from here down. I ain't. And
if you're watching the YouTube, it's one thing, but Buster just put his hand,
by my chin. So what we say in the cowboy world is I work for you from here down. You cut the head off, and I'm here physically. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'm not making any decisions for anybody else's ranch or their establishment.
No, and I was fortunate enough to witness that, and you explained that to me. Hey, when guys come to work or girls come to work on my ranch, I'm in charge.
Right, and and I feel that way with anything and everything that you deal with. This is not my place to be. It's not my place to tell you. You ask my opinion, I'll give you my opinion.
Yes.
If I feel comfortable with you. Other than that, I'm going to it's your place, it's your cows, it's your horses, it's your pens. We'll work them however you want to work them. And if, as they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, know what I mean? So back at my place, the way I work might be totally different. But I'm not working for me right now. I'm working for the man that's paying me. So
as long as it's safe and it's good for the animals.
Exactly. As long as it's safe, everybody's safe, and everything's done properly, and the animal welfare is okay, then I'll just roll with it, and we'll do it however you want to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch too. I mean, that was an eye opener for me, and we've laughed about it and talked about this, a dozen times. But when I came to work for you, I showed up on your front porch, got out of my truck, and handed you a resume.
Yeah.
After we talked on the phone, And I said, I just looking for a place to work on a ranch. I've always wanted to try working on a ranch. And by the way, a lot of people, and you get these questions a lot too on social media. And while I'm talking about it, if you're listening to this podcast, I know everybody's got a phone. If you're driving, obviously don't do it. But, people will typically front or backload somebody's Instagram like, hey, where do people find you? I'm going to do it while you're listening to this podcast. Go look at Buster's Instagram account, and it's one of my favorite Instagram accounts that I've ever seen anywhere on Instagram because it's real, but it's motivational, and it's in the vein of, I always make a joke about like the Marlboro Man, but Buster lives all the values that he posts. But it's Buster, Bustr Frierson, Frierson. So go check out Buster's Instagram while you're listening to this, because it'll really give you a picture of Buster. Anybody that's met Buster knows it. I mean, Buster walks into a room and every woman bats their eyes at him, and every guy's like, you talk to Buster for 5 minutes and it's either, man, I want to be Buster or I want to hang out with Buster. And I think that's a good quality to have. And I think more often than not, people say you'll leave and people go, man, I'd love to hang out with Buster. But where I was going earlier is it took one phone call to me to a friend of mine, Michael McDaniels, who's a deputy sheriff of Tarrant County in their livestock division. He's also in his 50s and he's on the SWAT team, and he'll probably whip just about most 25 to 35-year-olds' asses at working out, shooting, you name it. Mike McDaniels, I called him and said, hey, I want to work on a ranch. And he said, hey, I got a guy. Let me make a phone call. And he called me back and he said, hey, I'm going to give you a phone number. I want you to call this guy, but I'm telling you right now, you got to be ready to work, and this is the real deal. Like, Buster's the real deal. So I showed up to Buster's house, called him, talked to him on the phone, and the minute I heard his voice, you guys are hearing his voice. It's another thing that people always say. Buster will leave the room and somebody will lean over and go, man, I really love the way that guy talks. But when I showed up, I handed you a resume. I didn't know. I was fresh out of the Army. I'd worked at the Fort Worth Zoo for a while. I did some other stuff, but I handed you a resume, and you kind of just, wow, this is fancy.
Yeah. Bert hands me a resume, and I look at it, and it's like 3 pages front and back, and it's in this plastic folder, and it's very tight and clean, and everything's proper about it. And I look at it, and I straight up looked him in the eye and said, man, if you got one of these, you're probably way too qualified to work for me.
Yeah.
And handed it back to him, and he was like, he's kind of stunned, he kind of looked at me like, what the hell? And he was like, no, I mean, you can have it. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks, I appreciate it. And I took it and set it down, and we visited for about 30 minutes on the porch. And you invited me inside, and your house is, it's a modest ranch house, which people think in Texas, a lot of people have the opinion of ranches are like the TV show Dallas, and they're just not. No, not at all.
It's not like that. I've been on a couple of the nicest ranches with the most wealthy people in the state of Texas. Yeah. Oddly enough, I was on one of those ranches moving rhinoceros that they,
that's wild.
Down near the border. But, people that are worth $1 billion and then their ranch houses are 1,800 square foot.
Yeah.
And their barns are nice, but they're not super nice. The fences are nice, but they're not super nice. It's just Texas is Texas. Right. So I walked into your place, and it was like walking into a museum. I mean, there's old guns, there's old history, there's, tin-type photo books everywhere of cowboys and real cowboys. And, you look over at the wall, and you have Buster's got 12 pairs of boots. And, I figured cowboy boots are $100 and they get made somewhere in a factory, and some of them are handmade. And it was just like stepping into, again, it was like me stepping into the 1800s, and that's what I needed in my life at the time. That's what I was longing for, was meeting you. And we had a good conversation, and, I was making pretty good money at the time doing other stuff, a couple other jobs, and you were real simple about it. I remember it plain as day. You said, hey, I'll pay everybody that starts here on this ranch or works. You didn't say starts. You said everybody that works here. Yeah. $10 an hour. Yeah. You can work an hour a week. You can work 100 hours a week. I got work for you. We start at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's $10 an hour. You can take it from there. Because I'm sure I was nervous. I mean,
no doubt. And it is. It's just like that. I told Bert, I was like, he wanted to work. I said, I can work you 1 hour a week or 100. Doesn't matter to me. There's always something to do here at the ranch, and you're more than welcome to work as much as you want to work. I'll pay you $10 an hour, and that's all I can afford. And we'll do some shit work, and we'll do some stuff that's fun, and we'll do anything and everything in between. So, You know, I mean, everybody thinks cowboy deals like Bert. He thought, you know, after a couple of weeks, he's told me, he said, man, when I went to work here, I thought I was going to get to ride horses all day and gather cows every day and, you know, rope stuff and tie stuff down and do all the cool shit you see on TV. And he was like, all we've done is work on fences and build pens.
On fences and grind big mower blades. And
yeah, so you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the ranch that people don't. Not the cowboy shit, you know. I mean, you got to do everything else to be a cowboy. You got to be able to mechanic. You got to be able to farm. You got to be able to field fence. You got to be able to design a set of pins and, you know, weld and cut and fabricate. I mean, and you got to do a lot of everything. Be a plumber, a painter, a mechanic. You know, I mean, you got to be able to do it all. So, in my opinion, and there's some big ranches out there now that they're still just, you know, horseback jobs. That you're horseback every day, all day. Those are few and far between. Everybody's minimizing their labor just because of the cost, and so, you know, those big ranches, they have to utilize those guys horseback. You know,
yep.
I mean, and they're all day, every day horseback. And now, not to say they can't do all that other stuff, because they can. You know, most cowboys that work for a living as a cowboy, they can, you ask them, they can weld, they can build fence, they can design a barn, they can, you know, do anything, because they've had to do it all, because, you know, I mean, a lot of those big ranches are 3 hours from town. I mean,
yeah, and I think one of the things that surprised me, and we've talked about it, but I'd say that first year I worked for you, I'd say on average I was working 50, 60 hours a week for you. Yeah. And 40 hours of that, or maybe even more, had nothing to do with actually physically touching or moving cows.
Yeah.
That was just to keep the operation going. And that's where I was going.
Yeah.
When we started this, people will bitch about paying $5 to $10 a pound for good meat. And then you realize you go you build some fence at your buy some property first, build some fence, get some cows, and figure out what the heck you're doing. Like, again, that would cost you $50,000 to $100,000 a year to do that.
Right.
I think more people need to appreciate and figure out, and you're not saying this is me saying this, more people need to realize where their meat and their produce, crops, and agricultural goods come from, because it is a simple life, but it is shitty most days, and it is tough.
Yeah.
And I don't mean shitty in the sense that it's not enjoyable. You say it all the time, you know. I'm happy, you know, you say it all the time. You're happy doing what you're doing. It's a simple life, but I think 250 to 300 million Americans take it for granted, and I was one of those for a long time.
You know, I mean, it's like, Bert, whenever you came to work for me, you know, you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize this even happened anymore, you know. I mean, I didn't realize this was going on, and a lot of people out there don't realize it, you know. They don't understand where their produce comes from. They don't understand where their meat comes from. They don't understand where, you know, their denim comes from. I mean, that denim is derived from a cotton plant that somebody planted and spent 80 hours a week, you know, growing and harvesting and doing that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, so people, you know, they just take for granted you go to the store and you buy meat.
Yeah.
Well, that, you know, they don't think twice about where it comes from, or who, you know, that cowboy out there in the middle of the night when it's sleeting and it's 20 below zero, you know, and you're out there pulling calves out of a cow because she's had problems, the calf's breached, you know, and you're out there in the middle of the night doing that. And, you know, people think we're inhumane because we raise cows to produce beef, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what produces our living. So, I mean,
well,
we
it's
take
funny
care of them.
90% of the time, those same people, you look at them and they're wearing leather boots and a belt, and all they see is meat on a plate and blood. They don't realize as they're running their suck, their mouth, that they're wearing a belt and leather shoes. Or they get into even a hybrid vehicle that's got leather seats. It's like, come on, man. Like,
exactly.
Think about what's going on. Like, you got leather seats in your car. They didn't come from kitty cats raised in China. That's, that's beef cows.
No doubt. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's a, like I said earlier, it's a lifestyle. I mean, it's something that I enjoy, and most folks that are in the cowboy, ranching, agricultural industry, it's a lifestyle. It's their life. I mean, it's what they grew up doing. It's what maybe not even grew up doing. It's just something that was in them when they were born, that they're a producer. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, we just did.
Being a producer, you know.
We woke up this morning, came down and worked out at the CrossFit gym.
Which killed me
off. Killed me too. Yeah. But then we went back up, and, you know, we had my eggs that I
Right.
I have chickens. I'm a chicken rancher.
Yeah, chicken rancher extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire.
Bert.
But I go out to get more eggs and do water, and Buster just finished showering at the cabin, and I walk out there, and one of stinky Whip Wheeler, my border collie, goes nuts, and I'm like, what's going on? And a peregrine falcon was underneath the coop and was eating the head off one of my chickens, and there was a bald eagle sitting right above her.
Right.
And we had the conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a producer, losses.
Yeah, you got to write your death loss in.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff happens. I mean, it's just like whether you're a chicken rancher, or whether you're a beef rancher, or whether you're a sheep rancher, goat rancher, whatever it is. You even growing crops. You're still going to have those losses,
Yeah, hailstorms, bad weather, tornadoes.
You can't control this. So everybody asks, so I've been around some people, and they say, do you gamble? And I'm like, yeah, I gamble every day. I mean, I own cows. If you own livestock, you're a gambler. I mean, you gamble on the market, on the weather, on Mother Nature, on, whether they're having a war across the sea over there, and it either increases or decreases the price of your beef, but you have a set of costs that go into that, labor and all the costs that go into producing anything. And I mean, there's a lot of times you turn on TV or you get the market report and you're like, oof. I mean, cow prices dropped $10 100 overnight.
Yeah, the bison market right now, again, it's a perfect example. Or
crazy,
bison markets, it's low right now.
Yeah, and so it's that deal where you fight it. You don't just fight it once or twice, you fight it every day. There's something. Diesel prices are up, or chemical prices are up, or feed prices are up, and cow prices are down. It's like you're never set in a spot where you go, okay, well I signed a contract and I'm going to make $100 million this year. No, that's not the case. I mean, you get up every morning and you're like, whew, I hope I make $1 today.
Yeah, I hope you don't lose money.
Yeah, hope I don't lose any money today.
And I think that you and I were talking, last year. Had nothing to do with COVID. It just had to do with the processing market and the feedlots. And, you and I were talking, and a buddy of yours had just dropped off, a couple years of work with a, 500 or 1,000, whatever it was, cows. And you said that he left the sale yard losing money.
Yeah.
And, to spend 2 years and dump your whole life, 100 hours a week, your finances, your family's life, it's 24 hours a day. Then you go to drop your animals off and they go, oh, by the way, you're going to lose money on this.
Yeah, he had a set of calves that were ready to go to market, and he had already consigned them to a sale, and he had to take them one way or the other, and he just had to be beat up by the market. And he literally sent 2 loads of steers to Oklahoma City out of Georgia and lost money on the deal. And had spent 8 months feeding these cattle, getting them straight, getting them right, getting them where they needed to be. It's 8 months worth of labor, and he needed a paycheck. And he said, "I would
sun up to sun down."
Yeah, he said, I got to have a paycheck." And he's like, "So I'm just gonna have to take it."
That's crazy.
Take it.
I'm obviously grateful. I am. I'm one of your biggest fans, and not just you, your whole industry. And I wasn't. I took it for granted. But the other thing that amazes me is your circle of friends does this, 40, 50, 60, 100 hours a week. And then when you guys are done, you load up your horses on Friday night or Thursday or Friday morning, and you go to ranch rodeos. Which,
go to compete.
For your average person like me or anybody else out there that is not a horse person, that alone would be more energy and work, a 3-day rodeo, than most people would put in a week of work. And you guys do that for fun. Yeah. And I keep saying it, and you just went to the World Championships and you won top horse. So one team wins. So the ranch rodeo, and I'm no expert. I'm explaining this because Buster's explained it to me 50 times. Every time I ask, he's like, "Damn, son, you're dumb. Do you not remember what I just told you?" I'm just kidding. But there's a team wins at the World Championship Ranch Rodeo in Amarillo, and then there's a top hand and a top horse. Right. And the top hand is kind of the guy that is the handiest and does the best. Right. And then there's top horse, which when you look at it, you got top horse at the World Championships this year. That's a side of people that I think a lot of people are figuring out. They just look at Big Tough Buster, the ranch cowboy, but your horses are a whole nother layer on top of all this work. Every day you're out there training a horse that you buy for X amount of dollars, and you gamble on. Yeah. Because that horse might end up being lame. It might get hurt. It might just not be a good horse. You're obviously pretty good at picking horses, but how long does it take you to train a ranch horse? Say if you buy one fresh out the gate, and you will work that horse, and I will watch you. You and I would work 12 hours, and as I was getting in my truck to go home and barely walk and tired and dehydrated, you'd grab a horse and go into your round pen and spend 2 hours training.
Yeah.
Explain that piece, the actual working ranch cowboy horse.
So Bert's talking about the WRCA, which is Working Ranch Cowboys Association out of Amarillo, and they've been around. I guess this last year in November was the 25th rodeo. So they've been around 25 years, and they put on rodeos to provide for what they call the Working Ranch Cowboys Foundation, which is a crisis foundation. So in case somebody gets hurt, say me or any other cowboy or that's in the WRCA, we have a crisis fund that helps those people get along, because most cowboys don't have insurance unless you work for a big outfit that furnishes your insurance. And a lot of day help, day trashers, what we call them, day cowboys, they sure enough don't have it. They can't afford insurance. And so, in our world, it's a dangerous world. You're liable to get your finger cut off or your arm broke or a horse flip over on you and break your back.
Yeah, and I was just in Custer State Park. Chad Kremer, who runs the Custer State Park bison herd, we had that conversation because there's a lot of really famous stories of bison ranchers as they regenerated those animals and started growing them in private ranching. These guys would have their favorite bull, and that bull would be eight years, and they spent every day with that bull. That bull would eat cake out of their hand. They could tap that bull on the horn, and that bull killed him.
Yeah.
Just something snapped one day, they turn their back, something wrong, something spooks them. You guys kind of work in the same vein. Everybody sees the cool part, especially with social media, but going to the WRCA with you and going to other rodeos with you, there's a lot of stories of guys like you that are some of the best horse and ranch guys in the country that have you're one of them.
Right.
You got upside down. You had a horse wreck. You guys call them wrecks.
Yeah.
A horse wreck and broke your back.
Yeah.
And you're one of several dozen guys that I've heard stories like, and women,
right,
that are accomplished, that are some of the best horse people in the entire country for sure, that have had just freak accidents. And you get a $300,000 hospital bill, and you're a rancher that has no insurance, that's out there every day, whether it's lightning, whether it's horses, whether it's cows, whether it's, bulls. It's a dangerous job.
Yeah, no doubt. And so back to the crisis fund, I mean, they produce rodeos, and then that money that they pull in from the rodeos, they put some towards the rodeos, of course, and then they put some towards the crisis fund. And that crisis fund, when you get hurt, like when I got hurt, they sent me an application and just kind of filled it out. And I had insurance because I worked for an outfit that provided my health insurance. So I told them, I'm pretty good friends with the WRCA and the directors and the people that work there. As I told them, I said, man, y'all save that for somebody that doesn't have insurance. I'm good. I'm taken care of. So what they do is they kind of help pay some bills, and they might, help keep your lights on while you're not working, pay your truck payment. They furnish you with a flow of cash where you can pay your bills, whether they be hospital bills or light bills or gas bills or whatever they may be, just to kind of, we call it a handout, not a handout, but a hand up,
right.
And so a lot of cowboys are pretty proud. A lot of agricultural people are pretty proud. They don't want to take a handout from anybody, I mean, we're going to do it. We're going to do it on our own, and we're going to get through it one way or another. And so it's not a handout. It's a handout. It's a hand up, just helping people out, which it makes a great deal of difference when cowboys don't make a good living, not comparatively to everybody else. I mean, like if you're a full-time guy for a ranch, you might make $2,000 a month, and that's, if you have a wife and 2 kids, that's pretty slim. And most of the time they say a good cowboy always has a wife that has a town job. Well, most of the time the wife and the husband both have to work, to keep the lights on and the food on the table. So a lot of the time, you're not making, you might make $60,000 a year working.
No, and it's expensive getting into some of the funny stuff. I had worked for you for, I don't even know, I'm not good with dates, but 4 or 5 months, and then you guys had your first branding,
right.
sorting, branding, where you're separating off the calves, and they haven't been branded, they need to be branded and vaccinated. And that first day I showed up and I was wearing Ariat boots, and they had a rubber sole on them, and I was wearing an old pair of Levi's. I looked exactly like who I was,
right?
Like a guy that had never done this before and was coming out to help. and you guys put me on a flanking. First, I was running vaccination guns, then you put me on a flanking team, and I think the first calf that I went down to flank, or, to help with, the boot heel, my rubber boot heel ripped off my boots, and my jeans split from my manhood area all the way down to my knee. Not very much manhood there either. Just to throw that out there. But that was at 9 a.m, and you guys, one of the things, and we talked about this, you guys always take a lunch break. Your group of guys will work from sunrise to lunchtime. You'll go to lunch, and you'll come back and you'll work until you have to. If you don't get it done that day, you come back and do it all. But you guys always take a break to leave what you're doing and eat lunch. And it's one of that to me, those stories that I listen to, and being at a table at a Mexican restaurant or wherever, a steakhouse or whatever for lunch. And man, it's one of the best times of my life. But when you guys went to lunch, you sent me to Teskey's, which I'd never been to Teskey's. You're like, hey, go to Teskey's. You're going to find the general manager. His name's Casey Cooper. They'll get you sorted out. Keep in mind, this was with 15 cowboys that probably have 300 years experience combined of sorting, riding, doing cowboy stuff. And they're like, hey, they went to eat, and I had to hightail it, 30 miles?
Yeah.
One way
to
Teskey's. And I walk in there, and they're looking at me like I was about ready to rob the place, where I got robbed outside. And I go in there, and they fit me out with new boots and new jeans and a shirt. And I think I even got a hat. Yeah. I don't know what, Casey hooked me up with some of his guys there, Jesse, who's there. And I came back, and, when I went to get my truck, I was like, shit, that just cost me $375. And I got back, and the guy said, well, welcome to your first introduction into, you make $10 an hour, and you have, $50,000 worth of horses and gear, which is not, you guys don't splurge. Your trucks are the nicest, most, heavy duty trucks you'll ever get, because you need them.
Yeah, most of them aren't very nice, so they're just
they're
heavy duty.
Yeah, they're heavy duty, beat to hell, but they were nice at one point.
They run.
But you guys, you have to buy, on top of your pay, you have to pay for saddles, bridles, you name it, boots, chaps, leggings, whatever you call them from wherever you're at in the country. I'm sounding like a ding dong here, but you guys call them leggings up here. They call them something different.
Yeah, right.
But it's not cheap. Trailer.
No, it's
a trailer. Yeah. And how many blowouts do you have a year? Because you drive 1 million miles a year.
Tire costs $200.
Yep.
I mean, it's one of those deals where, it may look like we're splurging in certain areas, or it costs a lot to be a cowboy, but we save that money. We don't go to town to eat. We don't go play golf. A lot of us don't. I mean, that's our lifestyle. That's our hobby. That's everything that we do is evolved around. It revolves around the cowboy.
Yeah.
It revolves around, you got a saddle, you got a horse, you got a pair of boots, you got a pair of spurs, you got a pair of leggings, you got, a trailer, a pickup, tires, and it's bridles, bits, and just all kinds of stuff. So, it's one of those deals where it takes a minute, to get everything gathered up, and we'll do a lot of trading, you guys, I noticed that. We swap out, like I swap you horses, bridles, trailers, saddles, whatever, so it costs a lot, no doubt about it. And
but it's also a brotherhood,
most sane people wouldn't do it. They're like, the cost outweighs the return.
Yeah.
And they're like, hell no. But it's, it is what we do. Like I say, you're born into it, and it's your lifestyle. It's what you love to do. And man, I've done some other things, not a lot of other things, but I've done some other things and just hated my life while I was doing it.
That's a good segue. I wanted to talk about ranching, because there's a lot of people that know who you are, but they don't know who you are. That are associated with the podcast or Bison Union. You're an owner in Bison Union. You have been since day one. But, things have evolved much more than that. So let's take it back. I always ask everybody the same question on this show. What was your first pay job ever? Because I know you've done a ton of different jobs in addition to day work and ranch work the whole time. What was your first pay job ever?
My first pay job was my uncle owned a janitorial supply store about 20 miles from where I grew up.
Yeah.
And when I was 14, during the summer, my dad would drop me off in the morning about 6:30.
Your dad's a lifetime welder. That was his.
Right.
That was
my dad
his.
welded and rode. He cowboyed when he was
cowboy as
younger,
well.
and then my dad kind of grew up in that era where you did anything and everything to make a living, and he could do anything and everything. I mean, from a carpenter to a cowboy to a welder, but he excelled in the welding industry, and he built a lot of barns and a lot of fences, and then he went to work for a rail car plant. They rebuilt rail cars, box cars, tanker cars, and worked his way up through that. He started as a purchasing agent for them and worked his way up through that, and he was the general plant manager when he retired. And he was there 26 years, I guess, and retired. Both him and my mom were both retired. My mom worked for the post office when I was growing up as a rural carrier, and then a city carrier, and then she went into the office and kind of was a clerk in the post office. So both of my folks are retired and living on the lake.
Two of the nicest people.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts of going to the rodeo is just hanging out with your parents. That your mom might be one of the nicest, funniest people you've ever met in your life. Couldn't be more Texas.
But my dad would drop me off over there at my uncle's janitorial warehouse, and I would sweep and box janitorial supplies and unload trucks and load trucks.
How old were you?
14.
Where'd it go from there?
So every summer till I was 16, till I got my driver's license, I worked for him every summer. And then once I got my driver's license, I and most people don't even know this was a real deal, but I went to work for a cotton farmer right there where I went to high school at Roscoe, and I hoed cotton.
That's a new one. I didn't even know that.
Literally walked up and down the rows of cotton and hoed weeds out of the cotton. That's what I did for the summer. And of course, that was a good job for me right then because I could drive to the cotton fields and I'd hoe cotton. And by noon, it was so hot you wouldn't want to be in the cotton fields. So we'd quit, and then of course I played athletic. I did football, basketball, track. Tried to do any sports that I could. So after lunch, we'd drive back into town, eat lunch, go to the pool, or we'd go to the gym and work out, and then go to the pool afterwards, and cool off. And that was kind of what our summer routine was. There was about 4 or 5 of us guys that did that, and we had us a little cotton hoeing crew together. And we'd hire out to the cotton farmers around there, and we'd walk and hoe cotton, and
until it got super hot, and then you'd.
Oh yeah, and then we'd start at daylight, before daylight, and start hoeing. And people are like, "You did what now?"
Yeah,
like,
I didn't know that, and I've been
take
talking
an old hoe and walk down the rows and cut the weeds out of the cotton rows. I've done a little bit of everything, and then I went. Of course, when I was real young, I went with my dad during the summer. when I was out of school, and I'd paint fence.
Which your son Ranger.
Right.
Who I spent a good 2.5 years every day, or a lot of that time with Ranger, because I wasn't able to ride a horse. Right. I was opening gates, driving pickups, hitting sirens, doing whatever. But Ranger, watched him grow up. And you said now he wears a size 12.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him, he was already taller than me, and he's a sophomore in high school, and which is not hard to do. I'm 5.
I was gonna say,
5'7",
most people
and a
I
quarter.
know is taller than you.
Yeah,
5'5.5".
But he's a good kid. But he has it now. He comes and spends his summers with you and works on the ranch. And since we're talking father-son stuff, you got to tell the chicken story, shooting your chickens.
Oh yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah, I didn't forget about that.
No. So where we grew up, I grew up on a dirt road in a little bitty town. There was 416 people that lived at the city limit sign, and we lived right at the city limit sign down a dirt road, probably 1.5 miles. And my dad grew up with horses and cowboyed and rodeoed and trained horses as well, at doing anything. And so we always had a lot of horses, and we had a barn. But during the summer, both my folks worked, and during the summer, me and my sisters would stay at the house. Sometimes we had a babysitter, but I ran them off pretty quick. Most of the time, I was a little shithead. And
no, come on.
Yeah. So Mom couldn't keep a babysitter around much. So anyway, one summer we were there. I think I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and we had my uncle had given us a bunch of chickens at Easter, the little tie-dyed chickens, or the little dyed chickens, like 20 of these little bastards. Well, they all grew up, and there was like 2 hens, and the rest of them were roosters. And I'm talking about, they were always around the barn, out there by the horses. And
just free range running
around.
Yeah,
just free range chickens running around the yard, in the barn.
Ranch
and whatnot.
chickens.
Ranch chickens. So the roosters, of course, they got mean, and they'd chase you, and they'd try to flog you and spur you, whatever you want to call it. They'd chase you down, and they were assholes. And my littlest sister was about 5 or 6 at that time, and I'd say I was probably 11, maybe 12. Well, probably around 11, I guess, because we're 5 years difference. So she was probably 6, and I was probably around 11. But anyways, we were there at her house by herself, and I walk out to the barn, and she's up on the horse walker, and there's roosters had chased her up on the horse walker, and she was screaming, she was crying, she's scared to death. And I was sick of the chickens anyways, because I hated them. And so I went in the house and got my dad's shotgun out of the closet. Nobody's around. Got a box of shotgun shells and went out there and killed every chicken that I could find.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, and I mean I shoot all of them.
I've met your dad, so I can only imagine how that turned out.
Well, of course,
your dad's the nicest guy in the world,
yeah.
But it's a Patrick Swayze thing. He's nice until it's time to not be nice.
Yeah. So of course, I was an 11-year-old kid. I didn't know no better. I just left the chickens laying around where they died, and I was pretty proud of myself. I killed all these chickens. I was sick of them. We didn't have to deal with them. We weren't scared of them anymore. In my mind, that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And they were attacking us,
Yeah.
But they were dangerous.
Little dinosaurs.
Yeah. So my dad showed up that afternoon when he rolled in, and he started seeing chickens dead laying around everywhere. Of course, he come and found me pretty quick and asked me what I'd done. I told him, I said, I shot all them chickens. Well, after the beating he gave me, he didn't really beat me for shooting the chickens. He beat me for going in and getting his gun without anybody being around and without any permission.
Texas.
I wasn't allowed to do that, wasn't old enough, he didn't think. So after he whooped my ass for a pretty good minute, he told me, he said, go get a shovel and gather all them chickens up and go across the road over there. We had a field over there that we had hay grazer in at that time. And he said, I want them chickens buried, all of them buried. Not in the same hole. Every chicken gets his hole of his own. I'm like, okie doke. So I went over and I don't know how many holes I dug, probably 15 or 16 holes and buried all the chickens. But yeah, that was kind of that was always be a great memory of my childhood.
Yeah, I laugh every time. And it's not it's a funny story, but it just cracks me up.
But yeah, so job-wise, I've kind of done everything.
Yeah, you're a lineman for a while.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, and during high school, I had a cousin that worked for an outfitter, guiding hunts. And, so on the weekends, when I didn't have anything to do, I would go to the camp wherever they may be, and I would wash dishes and help the cook and clean deer and just do anything and everything. And so I did that for a little while, like my junior and senior year during hunting season. And then once I graduated, I went to college, or I enrolled in college, I guess. And come fall rolls around, and the outfitter that I'd worked for, he called me and asked me if I wanted to go to New Mexico and help him around some hunts up there. I was, you bet. So I packed my stuff, quit school, and went to New Mexico with him. And that job kind of lasted 3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 hunting seasons. I did end up go to work for him full time throughout the year. And once I kind of got the knowledge of what he was doing and what he wanted to do, like I'd go look at ranches that we were going to lease or buy the tags off of. I would go survey, fly in a helicopter, and count deer, bucks to doe ratio. Just kind of check the livestock or the wildlife out and see if it was worth us leasing a ranch or if we could sell some hunts. And so I did that. I guided hunts in New Mexico, elk hunts, mule deer hunts. We'd go back to Texas and guide whitetail hunts, turkey hunts, quail hunts. I mean, we hunted year-round pretty much. There was just a few months in there that we didn't do something. And during that time, we were getting everything geared up, ready to come back up north to do the elk hunts and mule deer hunts. And we were surveying and scouting ranches and different things and keeping feeders full. There was always something to do. So I did that. His kids got up into high school, and he wanted to stay home a little more, so he quit outfitting on the scale that he was doing because he wanted to stay home with his kids. So I just all of a sudden, I don't have a job, I'm kind of locked in on this deal and really loving it and liking the lifestyle of that, and so he quit, told me he was going to, and I had one of the guides that helped us in Texas in the whitetail season. He worked for Lone Star Gas, and he told me and him were good friends. He told me, he said, man, I can get you a job in the construction crew at Lone Star Gas there in Abilene. I said, heck yeah, I'm paid pretty good, insurance, and so I did that, and I worked on a construction crew with him for about 1.5 years, I guess, replacing lines and fixing damaged lines and doing whatever, pretty much. Well, I run into a gal in Abilene at the bar one night, and the rodeo was in town. The pro rodeo was in town at Abilene, and I ran into this old gal, and we danced the night away, and I kind of got to dating her, trying to date her, and so she lived in Fort Worth, and I got to driving back and forth to Fort Worth every weekend or every minute that I had loose.
From where?
From Abilene, which is 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Not a bad drive.
Not a bad drive, except on Monday morning at 3 o'clock when you got to be back at Lone Star Gas at 7:30. You know, so
yeah.
I would drive to Fort Worth and hang out, and we'd do the 23-year-old, 24-year-old party all weekend, you know, and then turn around. I'd drive home and back to Abilene. I'd work all week and go back to Fort Worth. And so about that time, Texas Utilities, TU Electric, had bought Lone Star Gas out, and they had a hub, of course, in Fort Worth was their main hub.
Big
and,
hub.
Yeah, so I got online and was looking for a job up that way, thinking I could go in the gas side of it because that's what I understood. There wasn't any gas jobs open, but there was a lineman job open in West Fort Worth. I thought, shoot, I can do that. That ain't no big deal. So I applied for it, got the job, moved to Fort Worth, and started training as a lineman. I worked as a lineman for TU Electric.
It's not easy work.
No, not at all. Worked for there about 4.5 years, I guess. I was almost a senior lineman whenever I decided this wasn't for me, that I needed to get back into the ranching cowboy. That's, you know, and I guess jump all the way back. I mean, we always had horses and cows, and I grew up rodeoing. My dad rodeoed. My dad worked on ranches. I mean, I was in my first junior rodeo when I was a 5-year-old, breakaway roping calves. You know, my mom and dad got pictures of me riding steers when I'm 5, you know, 6 years old. And so I kind of grew up my young life. That's what we did. And I mean, I don't even remember not riding a horse, you know. I mean, I've always been around them. So I was always kind of in that deal. Not the big ranch growing up. My dad didn't work on a big ranch. He didn't have a camp job, you know. I mean, nothing like that. We didn't grow up on that. But we grew up on the kind of the lower side of that with just 5 or 6 horses around, and he'd go catch cows for people, and he'd break a lot of colts for people. So I was always around that. I broke my first horse when I was like 10 years old, you know. I mean, so I was always around it, and I guess it was finally kind of creeped back up. Once I got into sports, I kind of left the cowboy rodeo deal because I was very competitive on the sports side of everything. And so I, went to Fort Worth, lineman, decided I was being miserable. I was drinking a lot. The gal that I'd moved up there for and I'd split up. We didn't stay together, and I kind of got on the bad side of things and wasn't happy with my life. And so I was trying to make up for it with drinking, and I was running pretty hard and getting into some trouble.
Is, for me, I was lucky. I keep saying I was fortunate and lucky to work with some of the guys I work with. And, 2 or 3 days of branding and sorting and branding cows, I would spend a lot of time, in a corner of a corral or somewhere with 1 or 2 guys or one guy that had worked with you and known you for decades. And, guys would mention that. They'd say, the first thing they'd say is, man, you got really lucky getting a job for Buster. There's nobody better than Buster. And then the next thing,
there's a lot of people better than me.
No, but you know what I mean? It was a compliment that you guys extend to each other. That's one thing. It's like where I came from in the military. Once you're on a team with somebody, if the team gets along and your team, man, it just builds each other up. Every time you guys do something, you're building each other up. But, a couple of them would mention guys that knew you real well and ran with you from then to now would say, man, Buster was the guy back in the day, like tell stories of 4 guys on top of you and you'd pushing them all the way out from one side of a bar to the other side of a bar. And anybody that's met you is built as big as a doorway or a refrigerator. But, that was one of those things. And I just never saw that side of you because you don't drink. When was the last time you drank? You don't mind me saying?
No, 17 years ago.
Yeah, which is guys that tell those stories about you, your days. You've told me some stories.
Right.
And you don't embellish them, but making that shift, because I think you live one of the cleanest lives I've ever seen, and people would expect you to be a whiskey drinking cowboy, and you don't. It's been 17 years, and you just don't need it.
Yeah,
you just don't. I think that's when I look at you, you just don't need it.
Yeah.
Not that anybody needs it, and I don't judge anybody. If they drink, they drink. I don't care. It's not my.
Doubt.
I don't judge anybody. If anybody wants to enjoy a drink, please do. But it's just that's a big part of you kind of switching.
Yeah,
from one life to another.
Yeah, no doubt.
Which is hard to do. I'm assuming
it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah,
in the ranch community and in the cowboy community, because it's a 300-year-old lifestyle that has been run a certain way.
I mean, it's one of those deals. Like I say, it was the hardest thing I'd ever done, and I'd gotten into some trouble. Like I say, kind of back up to that deal, and wasn't happy, and so I was trying to find something that made me happy, and trying to knock that feeling of not being happy. You try to dull that, because it seems to take over your mind. That's all you're thinking about. I'm not happy. And so I was drinking, trying to dull that, where I could, thinking I was happy, and making fool myself into thinking I was happy, which I wasn't. And it just caused a lot of problems in my life. It caused a lot of problems in my relationships and work, and with the law. And I got to seeing a pattern, and I got a couple of DWIs, and just kind of one of them deals where it's like, well, finally somebody throwed the hammer down on me pretty hard, and I thought I could pretty big and tough, and I could get away with, doing this, and I could go on. It wasn't no big deal. And so I did a little county time, I guess. The judge sentenced me to 45 days in jail to set out, and I chose it, actually, instead of paying a big fine, because I didn't have any money at that time, damn sure didn't have the deal. So I just chose to set it out in jail, which a lot of people probably would try to hide that from the public as well. I mean, it is me, and I am pretty damn honest most of the time, about
probably
everything.
The most honest guy that I've ever met in my life.
No. Sometimes it's a detriment, sometimes it's beneficial, but, I mean, I spent about 45 nights in jail, and about that third night, I remember laying on a metal.
How old were you at this time?
26, 27.
Yeah.
And I remember it very vividly. I was laying on it. They had me in a concrete pod, I guess is what they called it, and there was about 10 or 11 guys in that pod, and I was laying on a metal bunk bed with one sheet, no pillow, and with a little old foam kind of type, not even a foam mattress really. I mean, it was just like a plastic, not much of anything really. Had a little bit of stuffing in it, and it's probably 20 years old, and I'm laying there, and I'm just going through my head 900 miles an hour trying to figure out why I'm laying there, I mean, like, what have I done? Where have I gone wrong? What have I been doing wrong? And blamed everybody else. It was the cop's fault. It was my girlfriend's fault, or it was somebody, somebody pissed me off. It's always somebody else's fault, when I got in trouble, and never would really be real honest with myself about why I was in the problems and situations I was in, until that moment right there, laying there, and I was like, whew, and it got real serious real fast in my head and in my heart, and I told myself the only reason that I was there was because of me and the choices that I'd made.
It only takes 1 second for your entire life to come to one point in your brain.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just like that, and I was like, man, how do I should never be back here. I'm never coming back here. I'm never coming back here. And the only way that I could figure out that I would never be back there, because I knew myself well enough to know that I couldn't get out of there and go have a beer or two at the bar and go home, or have a beer or two at the house and quit. I was always one of those guys and I still am today. I guess my competition is like, when I start something, I'm going to do it until I can't do it no more.
And if you do it, you're going to do it 100%.
Get after it. So like, if you back in the old days, you set a 30-pack of beer right there, and we started drinking it, we're going to drink it till it's gone. And if you pass out before I do, that's shit out of luck on your spot, man. Yeah, you lose, I win. And that's kind of what my mentality is on everything. And so I kind of I realized right then and there that I needed to change something in my life, and I thought the only thing not the only thing, but the main thing I needed to change was my drinking. And so when I did my 45 days, I got out, and I told myself right then and there that night, as I was laying on that bunk, that I would never drink again. And
is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Never drink again. I've never touched it again. And I could tell you that back in the day. I could tell my girlfriend. I could tell my mom. I could tell you're my friend. I mean, hell, we're like brothers.
Right.
And I could go 2 weeks, and if you saw me with a beer, you're like, hey, man, I thought you wasn't going to drink. And be like, hell, it's all right, And you'd be like, yeah, it's okay. I still love you,
Yeah.
And that's the way that's kind of the way everybody around me at that time was. Like, it didn't matter. I could tell them that I wasn't going to do something, and they'd be like, oh, okay. And then when I did, they still love me, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still Buster. They're still going to love me, and it's cool, you know? They might be disappointed for a little bit, but they're still going to love me. And once I realized that the only way I could promise anybody anything is if I kept that promise to myself first. And, man, completely changed my life, you know? I mean, no doubt about it. I'd have probably been dead or in prison by now. And if I'd have remained drinking, and maybe something even worse, I don't know. But so that life kind of led into, I had to figure out how to live a life without drinking. And and I still say it to this day. You know, I went to all the AA classes. I did everything. I did it all. I went to a rehab. I did it all. And then I would get out and I'd go back to drinking. I'd leave a AA class and go to the bar and have a beer or two before I went home, you know. I mean, it was just something, that's what I was at that time.
Right.
And so once I kind of got over that, I had to figure out how to readjust my life to, I guess, manage me not drinking. And I stayed around right there around Weatherford for a little bit, but I took a job in East Texas where I didn't know anybody and went down there and worked on a yearling outfit. And all I did was work. And I mean, I ground from 4 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock every night, 7 days a week for a year and a half straight. All I did was work. And it changed my life too. I mean, because I figured out how to do that without having alcohol or a beer or some kind of drink, you know. And those people down there didn't know me, so it was easy for me. They'd offer me a beer. Good. All those guys would drink, you know, and after work, they'd be out there around the pickup drinking beer just like we did at home, you know. Right. And they're like, hey, Buster, you want a beer? I'm like, no, man, I don't drink. Appreciate it. And I'd get my pickup and drive off. Well, it was easier for me to do that. I couldn't do that with my people that I'd already made a reputation with, that I were friends with. They knew I drank. Yeah. And so it was easier for me to go somewhere else and try to learn how to live without being a drunk, I guess. And, you know, kind of another thing everybody talks about, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I was that guy. I'm not an alcoholic, man. I get up and go to work 12 hours a day.
And you and I have had that conversation. There's a difference between a stumbling brown bag, vagrant drunk, which everybody wants to throw that label on somebody. Yeah. And there's a difference between that person and a highly functioning alcoholic. And I think America's got millions of highly functioning alcoholics.
Oh, no doubt.
You know, I don't know that, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But, you know, when you say that, like you said, I was that guy.
I was that guy.
I'm not a drunk. I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah, I'm not an alcoholic. I mean, I get up in the morning, drink coffee, and go to work.
I pay my bills.
I don't drink a beer. I don't drink a beer or a whiskey drink until about 4 o'clock when I'm off.
Yeah.
It doesn't interfere. Yeah. So that was I was one of those guys where when I did start, I was a binge drinking alcoholic, I guess. And when I did start drinking, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to drink.
Which probably didn't end too well more often than not.
Never, you know, never ended.
You were getting your lights punched out, or somebody else probably more often than not was getting their lights punched out.
There was always something going on, you know, because I'd get to that spot where, hell, this isn't exciting, so let's try to make it more exciting. And then you just increase that. And so to increase that, you increase your alcohol intake, or you increase the situations you're in, you know, you increase the heat to see if it gets more fun. And I've always been an adrenaline junkie. I mean, I still am.
Well, that's a good say. Would you say that that's where your ranch rodeoing and stuff took over?
Yes.
To fill that drug in your brain.
Exactly.
To get those drugs flowing.
And, you know, I mean, so what I did, instead of drinking, I'd go to the gym. I was fat, sloppy, overweight, you know, and I was fat and sloppy. I was pretty damn fat and sloppy, you know. I weighed like 260 at that time.
What do you weigh now, 2 1/4?
220, 225, something like that, you know, and that's kind of what I walk around at. But
my arms are still bigger than yours.
Yeah, whatever. Shit. We're gonna have a measurement. We're gonna have a measure off.
I'm not now. You saw my life these days. No. I go to the gym and do a quick workout. I go to work and I go home and sit by a fire.
Yeah.
But anyway.
but yeah. And so I started working out. Instead of going to the bar at night, I'd go to the gym, and I was trying to figure that out, you know. And so I got hooked into that. So
while you're talking about you work your ass off. You ranch rodeo on the weekends. You're always driving horses or cows all over the country. You still find time to go to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
I know you have lapses where you're just too busy, where you're working somewhere for 3 weeks out on a big ranch in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And what's funny about that is I'll still work out because it's such a drug to me now. Yeah, you know, I mean, like the other day I was out at Balmaray at that big ranch out there, and all the guys were sitting around, all the hands were sitting around drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, just like what cowboys are supposed to do, you know.
Yeah.
I went in after lunch, and they were all there was a couple of them going to ride a few colts and do some stuff like that, you know. And but everybody was off, so it wasn't no big deal. And they'd drinking beer and hanging out. The young crew, you know. And I was the old man on the crew, by the way, me and another friend of mine. But I went up to the bunkhouse, and I had a pair of shorts and tennis shoes, and I slipped my shorts and tennis shoes on and went running by those guys at the saddle house. And they're like, "What the hell? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I see y'all after a while." And I jogged. I don't run anywhere. I jogged down to about a mile down the road to a cattle guard, and I'd jog about 100 yards and do 10 push-ups and jog 100 yards and do 10 sit-ups, you know, and just I got to keep that because that's my kind of my outlet now.
Yeah.
That's kind of my relief and my stress relief. So I still work out even, you know, not quite as hard as I do if I'm around a gym by any means, but I try to make it work a lot of different places. So I kind of, the ranch rodeo deal, the competition, I'm very competitive no matter what it is. I mean, we can shoot marbles or we can go have a bull down.
Man, the ranch rodeo, and I was new to this when I met you. I'd never been to one. It's so funny because you have the most polite, respectful. You can sit at a ranch rodeo behind the stands at a concession area, just sit and watch people. I like watching people. I really enjoy it. But you just watch hats coming off, hands shaking, kids that are, you know, when you see a 4-year-old boy meet a 70-year-old woman and he takes his hat off, puts it on his chest and shakes her hand. Like, it's just a whole nother dynamic. But when you guys go through those tunnels or through that gate out in there, man, it is a battle. It is a battle, but it's the most respectful. It's one of the most fun things if you ever, and I say this all the time, if you get a chance to go to a ranch rodeo, doesn't matter if you're in New York, upstate New York, if you're in Texas, or if you're in Wyoming, go to a ranch rodeo some weekend with your family. You do not have to be a cowboy. You do not have to be, just go to watch one and watch how respectful people are. Watch how people respect the country. They respect our history. They respect each other. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, a Mexican cowboy. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't black, white, green. It doesn't matter. You go there, and if you treat people with respect, you get 10 times more back.
Exactly.
I just really recommend that people listen to this. If you have never been to a ranch rodeo, when all this COVID stuff gets lifted, there's going to be ranch rodeos this summer, next summer. Just go to one. They're, you know, half the time they're free. You just go in the stands and watch. You know, just the WRCA. You can Google WRCA rodeo, and they'll have a list of dates in the South. There's other, you know, rodeo tours and circuits, but just go. But, man, it's fun to watch you guys get in there because you'll battle it out, and then the next thing you see is how much you guys rib each other.
Yeah.
And how, the sense of humor and the camaraderie and the respect that you guys have for each other. And there's kids running around riding horses bareback in the parking lot. There's just wives everywhere with babies everywhere, and you got 90-year-old people in the stands that, you know, they were the ones in the arena at one point, and they don't have an ego. They're not telling stories about, oh, and I was doing that. They're watching and supporting.
Right.
It's just a neat. It's a neat
great
thing.
Community. I mean, the ranch and agricultural cowboy. It's a, you know, it's a great community, and like you say, I mean, you show respect, you get 10 times that respect back, shown back to you, and so it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what color you are. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as you're respectful and you're polite and you treat everybody like the old saying, treat everybody like you want to be treated.
Yeah, it's that simple.
I mean, it is that simple, no doubt about it, and it's the, you know, in my opinion, probably one of the hardest working communities, the most driven, the most honest, integrity, character group of people that you can ever be around, you know. And it's like anything, there's some sorry shitbirds out there, no doubt about it.
It's in every. And I say everywhere. That I laugh because I've been a sorry shitbird before, and you know they're out there everywhere. The goal is just don't be a sorry shitbird. That needs to go on a T-shirt. Don't be a sorry shitbird - Buster Frierson.
but you know, I mean, so that's kind of how my life changed when I quit drinking, and I went to working out and trying to better myself and better my life. And I went to work for a ranch there. I got married, went to work for a ranch, worked for that ranch for a couple of years. I got divorced. We just kind of went separate ways, and I had a son. He's 14 now, and love him to death. Good kid. Couldn't say much better things about him.
Oh, man, he's
great. I was very blessed with having a son like him for sure, and it's like anything,
genuinely one of the nicest people. He just has. Man, I don't think he has a mean bone in his body.
That's good.
The only time I've ever seen him, do, and it's funny. They were messing around with the cattle prod, and it was him and one of your other partners that comes and works for you. Yeah. He had 2 boys, and they were messing around, and Ranger looked around, and I was He didn't know I was watching him, and he looked around and he popped one of those kids. They were joking about it, and Ranger pulled the trigger. I don't know. He was 8 years old, I think, at the time,
probably,
and he popped one of those kids, and man, he felt so bad about it, and he never said don't tell my dad, but he gave me that look like. I will get tarred and feathered if my dad finds out I popped somebody with a hot shot. Yeah,
he'd have figured out what they felt like.
But just a nice kid, just a nice, good kid. And it's not just Ranger. It's, man, all your buddies that I've met, husbands, wives, are just, I could name 10 buddies of yours that have rubbed off on me and just such a good. They've made me a better person just being around them and talking to them. CJ, man, right. I could name 20, more than that, 20. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because it's an interesting dynamic to me. I didn't play a huge part in any of this, so I don't want it to sound like I'm asking you because you and I were together at the time. But let's talk social media. Yeah. Because when I met you, it wasn't just you; it was your whole. It wasn't that long ago either.
No, 6 years ago.
6 years ago, there wasn't a lot of cowboys or ranchers or farmers on social media, and the military went through this boom of military veterans getting on. It doesn't matter if you were in the greatest unit ever, a tier 1 unit, or any kind of unit in the military. It was kind of taboo to have a social media account or talk about what you're doing. Right. We went through that revolution, and I was at the front end of it, because other people did it. I followed their lead. I wasn't a trailblazer by any means, but your community was a little bit later than that. And you were, it was when I met you, I don't even know how long it was. You're like, you were busting my balls all the time because I would take a photo and I'm like, I'm going to put it on Instagram. Yeah. I was so enamored by Cowboys ranching. Instagram was. You didn't.
No.
You knew what Facebook was just because you heard about it, but when you had talked about it and you're like, you're going to take that picture and do what? Yeah. And I said, I remember you saying it, like, why would somebody want to look at a picture of you or me on a horse? And that, at some point, somewhere along the line, I remember it in my head. I remember the truck. I remember sitting there with you, and we were, been out. You were checking cows, and I was with you, and doing fence work. And then you said, "Hey, I'm going to get an Instagram account." And it was hesitantly too, but you got one.
Well, it was because you wouldn't shut the hell up about. We'd started Bison Union, and you wouldn't shut the hell up about. Hey, you need to get an Instagram. You need to get an Instagram every day, 10 times a day. And finally, one day you were saying, "Hey, have you got on Instagram yet?" I said, "No, but I'm fixing to." And I handed you my phone and said, "Set it up."
Yeah,
and you did.
I did. I set up your Instagram. I put your name. I set it all up.
Yeah.
And you're one of the accounts, and I can name a few other people. Sky Clark. There's other people in your. In the south part of the country, but ranchers and cowboys, cowgirls, and I know Sky hates it when I say cowgirl. She's just, hey, I'm a cowboy just like everybody else. Yeah. But you get these Instagram accounts that are just so pure and true, and there's not, you're putting a picture of yourself on Instagram, but the message that comes with it and the lifestyle and everything else, your Instagram still to this day is one of my absolute favorites. I check it every day.
Well, I appreciate it.
But
that's good since you set it up.
What are your thoughts on that? Now that we're 4 years, I don't know how long it's been since you set up.
Probably 5 years.
But what are your thoughts on that? Because now, and we talked about this, I said, hey, you don't have to sell yourself out. You don't have to be a douchebag. You can just take pictures of your real life as you're doing something in a true, integrity-driven fashion, and it will help your life.
Yeah, no doubt. It has. It's changed my life. Meeting you and you coming to work for me at the ranch changed my life. Just like you say, in retrospect, reverse, in reverse, you're like, you changed it did. It changed my life because I wouldn't be where I am today without meeting you. And
vice versa. And my Instagram, you've seen my Instagram go through insecurity phases where it was like, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. And yours just isn't,
sometimes I feel like it's that way,
But you've seen mine go pretty fucking bad.
Right.
And I use the F word, to say that, because my Instagram, I've got on there for some days pretty angry and pretty pissed at the world. And you talk about the blame game, and I've got on there at times in the last 4 or 5 years where, I was having a bad day or a bad month and finding a way to blame everybody but myself, instead of just going, hey, just stop being a shitbird and just do what you do. Go to work, shut your fucking mouth, and go home and spend time with your dogs around a fire, and find the core group of people that promote you.
That make you better.
When I say promote, I don't mean on social media. They promote you by telling you, hey, man, and I'm going to get a little bit sentimental here, but you're one of the, I don't need to talk to you every day. And there's times where you didn't want to talk to me because I was being a prick and a shitbird. But you still find a way to call me and say, hey, man, I love you. And to hear that from a 225-pound guy that was born 150 years too late, that probably should have been in the Wild West, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, hey, man, I love you. I'm here for you. I don't need to talk to you every day. Even if you're being a shitbird, I'm still here. You say it every time when I say, hey, I'm just having a bad day. Come on down to Texas. Come down and work with me. I'll put you on a horse. I'll put you on a fence, whatever. And
we all need those, we need
absolutely.
those people in our lives that calls you on your shit and calls you out and go, hey, man, you need to pull your head out of your ass.
And
quit blaming everybody.
I literally remember conversations where you yelled at me, and you don't yell. When you yell, for you to yell at somebody, and you said to me, I remember the phone call. I remember it. Casey Cooper said the same. Bert, you have more fucking excuses than any motherfucker I've ever met in my life. Excuse the language. But, hearing that, I showed up 2 hours late to Amarillo, and you pulled me aside in front of 15 cowboys and said, hey, you can do whatever you want, but if you tell me and my friends and my partners and my teammates that you're going to be here with T-shirts or whatever for this rodeo at noon, and you get here at 2:00, and I didn't think anything of it. I stopped at a bison ranch on the way, and but you pulled me aside in front of 10, 15 cowboys, and they knew I was getting a talking to and said, hey, if you're going to be partners with me, if you're going to be my friend, if you're going to work with me, don't ever show up late again. If you say you're going to be here at noon, be here at noon.
And
most people won't do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And that comes from the cowboy agricultural rule, whatever background it is. If you're 10 minutes early, you're late.
Yes.
I mean, there's guys that I tell them we're going to start at 6, and they're there at 5:00.
I've seen it. I've watched it.
You've been there.
They get out of their truck and they'll have a cup of coffee, and they'll just sit on their truck and
I'm here, whatever. So like in our world, if you're 10 minutes early, you're late. So it's one of them deals, and hell, you need people to call you on your bullshit.
So does anybody bust your balls from your community on being on social media?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I've had to learn how to tolerate or live with that and understand that what those people think of me are none of my business. It's none of my business.
It's about them and not about you.
They're having problems with it. There's something, I'm not. It's one of those deals where, I post myself on Instagram and Facebook, and I promote myself, no doubt about it. I promote the lifestyle. I promote the cowboy.
Well, you promote other people more than you promote yourself, and that's what I've always said. Instagram and social media, I like that the best, when people promote other people in a positive manner. Like, that's it.
Yeah, and it's just it's one of those deals. You're always going to have haters, and I got haters, and that's fine, whatever. But it's one of those deals too where I know who I am, and I know what I am, and if you don't like that, then man, that's your problem, not mine. And I'm one of those guys that if you want to go wrestle, we can wrestle. If you want to tie bulls down, we can go catch bulls and tie them down. If you want to freaking go skydiving, I'll go jump out of a plane.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever. I mean, I'm down for whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at any of it. I'm not going to jump out here and tell you. I know guys that are way, way, way better cowboys than I am. No doubt about it. Way better horse trainers, way better people, way better weightlifters. I mean,
that's like I asked you last night at 9:00. I'm like, hey, you got workout clothes? And of course, you had a pair of tennis shoes or sneakers, whatever. Whatever you call them, wherever you're from, and you want to get up at 4 a.m. and go do a CrossFit workout. And you're like, hell yeah, why not?
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not? Let's
I don't
do
CrossFit. They kicked my ass this morning.
Oh, it kicks my ass every day, and I'm on, I think, month 3 or 4, and you saw me this morning. 3/4 of that class beat me, and 3/4 of that class was women who
it wasn't me.
weigh a whole lot less than I do, and pound for pound muscle wise. in theory, I should be a lot stronger than them, and they just smoke my ass.
It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it is very impressive. I mean,
Yeah.
it is the best workout I've ever done. I mean, it's one of those, and not going to say I haven't done a CrossFit workout, because I went a few times back 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And just realized that it was a really, really good workout, no doubt about it. Probably the best workout you could do, in my opinion, I mean, what I've done. But like I say, I mean, there's lots of people out there that are way better than anything that I do. But I'll try anything.
Give it a
I
shot.
mean,
Yeah,
come on,
absolutely.
So it kind of goes back to that deal, whereas I know who I am, I know what I am. I mean, I rode bucking horses till I was 43 years old in the ranch rodeo, I mean, I rode them 2 years ago at the finals. I rode 2 bucking horses, I mean, so you can say what you want. You can tell people, he's a fake, he's just a model or whatever. I mean, I go punch cows wherever, whoever, with whoever, whatever. It doesn't
Right.
matter to me. I mean, I know who I am. I know what I can do. And there's some stuff that I can't do. No doubt about it. There's some shit that I don't know that I would love to learn. And, so I'm not jumping out there saying I'm a big bad bastard by any means, but I'll damn sure try anything.
I think there's plenty of people that'll say it for you. You don't have to say it.
And I've been to the World Finals in the ranch rodeo, and that doesn't, I mean, it's just something that we do. I've been there since 2009. I've won top horse a couple of times. I've won top hand, reserve top hand a couple of times. I was second runner-up reserve world champion, or first runner-up reserve world champions 1 year. I mean, I've placed there a few times. So, that's against the best cowboys in the ranch rodeo industry. No doubt about it. Now, I'm not saying that's against the best cowboys, because there's a lot of cowboys that don't get a chance to ranch rodeo because of where they live or what job.
Yeah, I
they
mean,
have.
Wyoming's one of those states. There's just guys out in the middle of nowhere that don't.
You're in the middle
do
of
it.
nowhere. So I'm not. I don't compare myself to those guys, because I'm not in that situation, and they can't compare themselves to me because they're not in my situation. And so it's kind of one of those deals where I've learned to live with the haters and the bullshit talk, and whatever. But I put what I do up, and if you like it, great. If you don't, scroll on by. I mean, I don't give a rat's ass. I mean,
Yeah, and again, I'll say it
honest
again
with
for those that that Buster's Instagram is his own Instagram. It's Buster Frierson.
Yeah.
And
I wear a ball cap, and I wear tennis
Yeah.
shoes, and I'll go work out with a ball cap turned around backwards, and I ride a motorcycle. I rode a Harley for the last 10, 12 years. I actually totaled it in July, but I don't have one anymore. But I mean, I kind of do a lot of different things. And
Yeah.
I mean,
you're just you.
I mean, I love to hunt and fish. I'm Buster. I can't be anybody else, but I can promise you I can be Buster, and that's just me. I mean,
Yeah.
So
What else going on with you? What's and this episode was to introduce Buster as a co-host. This everybody knew it was coming. I've hinted at it. It was a matter of time. We just had a lot going on this last year. Both I did
no doubt.
personally
I did
and
too,
professionally, and
for
you
sure.
did as well.
Yeah.
But we're really going to start taking this podcast on the road. Buster's going to delve way more into some really cool venues and guests. But what's going on with you besides rodeo and a ranch? Ranch cowboy.
Kind of like I say, the Instagram social media platform has kind of changed my life. I've had some companies reach out to me.
Yeah, you're becoming an entrepreneur, which
is
not it's not a bad, it's a good thing. Like you're
yeah.
becoming an entrepreneur by your work ethic, your personality. People are, they're drawn to that, and you're. We've talked about the last couple of days. You got some neat stuff going on. Some of it you can talk about, some of it you can't. But
I mean, there's there's a lot of stuff that's happened in my life that's changed my life. Ever since the social media platforms taking place, and the first thing I represent and Schaefer Outfitters.
Yep.
They do a lot of stuff with Schaefer Outfitters, and I think that also kind of got my foot in the door of being a whatever you want to call it, an influencer or somebody that.
Yeah, and again, like Schaefer Outfitters is a family. Like
they're my people.
Rick and Nick Grant who run that. It's not just them. They're families, their spouses. They're all involved in it. But man, Nick and I talk quite a bit. I know you guys talk a lot. You've become really, really good friends. But just not
like my second family.
A better brand, a better group of people. And when you started doing that, I couldn't have been more excited. Like you deserve it. And they deserve you. It's a perfect relationship.
Yeah, it works out very well.
Yeah,
And,
just real people.
Good people, real.
Real
good company,
people.
good clothing, good whatever they do is good. It's top notch, and I do a lot of stuff with American Hats as well. They're out of Fort Worth, actually Bowie, but they have a best hat store there in Fort Worth. I just kind of started working with a new boot company that's coming out, Ozzolato Boots, which
we're gonna see something special.
Yeah, I think
so. See a Buster boot, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not a Buster boot. I don't know if I'm ballsy enough to go out there and name it a Buster boot, but something
that you
something of that line that I helped them kind of design and build, and kind of see where we can go with that. I think that's going to be.
What's the name of the company again? I know you told me you were wearing their T-shirt yesterday, or their sweatshirt this morning.
Yeah, Ozzolato.
Ozzolato,
Azulado, Ozzolato Boots, which in Spanish, Ozzolato means bluey, which is it's a pretty cool story. The guy that actually owns the company, his wife, now ex-wife, that was her nickname, was Bluey because of her piercing blue eyes. And I think he just kind of throwed the name out there.
Took it and ran with it.
She got quite a bit, I think, whenever they got a divorce, but she didn't get Ozzolato. Is kind of where it is, which is kind of cool. But anyways, I do that, and I actually came up here. I picked up a horse for a guy I do a lot of stuff with ProVantage Animal Health. They have it's a mineral lick tub, stress tub for horses, beef cattle, any kind of livestock, more or less. It's all natural, and it's good for anything except sheep. It's got too much copper in it that it doesn't work well with sheep, but it's a very good product. I do a lot of stuff with ProVantage, and he bought a horse up here at Cody and wants me to ride it for 6 months.
Cool ass horse.
Yeah, Jigs.
Yeah, cool horse.
And if you follow my Instagram and you go on my story, I posted a video of him this morning. But really cool horse. It'd be kind of neat to have him. He's a gypsy, 3-year-old gypsy stallion, Bayron paint. That got about 30 rides on him, so we're going to see kind of what he does. J.P. Williams, who owns ProVantage, or one of the owners of ProVantage, he bought him for his wife. We're going to kind of see how that works out. But anyways, I'm doing that. I made a big circle. I'm headed to Arizona when I leave here today, and going to go with another friend of mine that has a ranch down there, that Logan Anderson. He's got 7 Anchor Outfitters, and we're going to go chase
if you're a hunter, and it's not for the faint of heart by any means. If you look at their social media, keep in mind, they just posted yesterday of a mountain lion hunt, and that mountain lion had killed a couple calves.
Yes, 3 calves last week.
Which that alone, on a good year with prices, you're looking at $3,000 to $4,000 worth of somebody's livelihood. And I was fortunate enough to go with you and Logan a few years back, and that was the first time for me of doing a kind of, I would consider that a big game hunt, not huge, but a predator hunt.
You bet.
And was successful in getting a mountain lion, and the whole experience was 4 days maybe.
Right.
And it's one of the, I know this sounds, for people that don't hunt and don't agree with hunting, it was a very spiritual and a very, everything about it was an ethical hunt. It was just, it needed to be done. The animal was that animal as well. When we finally found that cat, it was because we found a cow.
Yeah, it had killed a cow a couple of days before, and that's how we found the cat. Was the dogs hit the track when we found the cow, and we found the cow from the buzzards circling around.
Yeah, and it was just 4 days of. In the one of the most beautiful parts of America that I've ever seen, and 7 Anchor Outfitters down there. Logan's another guy that
great family,
great family, great girls,
awesome cowboy.
Everything about him.
Great cowboy.
And Noel Tyree, who works with him, those guys, the same thing. Logan has a wife, kids. He's a rancher. He runs a hunting guide outfit, and he rodeos 30 weeks out.
And that's how I met Logan, was through the WRCA at the World Finals a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we just got to kind of hanging out and talking and became friends over the time. And, every year I see him back there, and we visit, and we've talked on the phone and social media and whatnot.
And I'm not a cowboy. I keep saying I'm not a cowboy. I'm not a rancher. I'm not a hunter. I'm learning to hunt, but I grew up in Kansas. You bird hunt and deer hunt, and that's, you bass fish.
Yeah.
And Logan's one of those guys that just randomly, once a week, once a month, every couple of weeks, just sends me a text message and says, "Hey, hope you're doing good. How's everything going? You need anything? You good? You want to come on down?" But it's just, 7 Anchor Outfitters if you follow them on Instagram. But if you're
you want to talk about some cool,
it's not
cool
for the faint
stuff.
of heart. It's, they rock and roll on hunting mountain lions in an area that's got too many mountain lions. And some people say, well, that's their space. They can't have too many mountain lions. You can. It's detrimental to every other species in the area. It's detrimental to cats themselves, and it's detrimental to people. You know, again, I've had a mountain lion attack my dog on my property in the last couple months, and it is not something you want to happen. It's violent.
You
it's
know,
fast.
it's like that. The thing about the reason why that cat's attacking your dog is because there's too many of them.
There's too many. They're getting pushed out of their 100-mile range.
Exactly, and there's not enough food for them, so they go to find the easiest. You know, any kind of predator, they take advantage of the weak.
Yes.
And I promise you, killing a border collie dog is way easier than killing a 1,200-pound cow.
Yeah. Yep.
No doubt.
Or a mule.
Or a mule deer or an elk or a moose or, you know, whatever else that they, you know, eat, but rabbits or whatever.
I think you'll end up doing, now that you're self-employed for the first time in your life, not your first time in your life, but
for a long time.
For a long time, but now you're really self-employed.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you the freedom to do a lot more stuff. You're going to be doing a lot more hunting.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're going to do some stuff. And I think that's, you know, we talked about that a little bit this morning too, about maybe taking the podcast and doing a few things like that, going out in the field and doing meeting some cool people and going out in the field and setting in the environment that they're in, you know, showing people where people like Logan live, you know. I mean, he lives an hour and a half from the highway, you know. I mean, it's a long ways out there to his camp, and you know, I mean, his wife and his kids, and to go to the grocery store takes them 3 hours, you know. I mean, it's one of those deals where people don't understand that. They don't even know guys like him exist because you're so caught up in your world, in your own little world. And I do the same thing. And when you realize what's going on, you get to a spot, you're like, wow.
People still live like this.
People still live like this,
and
you know,
and
it's a good life, a great life.
Well, I was about to say, and it's my opinion, just my personal opinion. When you go there and you look at them, they're a lot fucking happier than people living in cities running the rat race. It's just,
I mean,
it's just a
life
a simpler, harder
life.
harder but simpler life, and I'm trying to emulate. You saw my life. You know, I've had an interesting year this year, and you can tell that I've had an interesting year at my house because there's a pile of wood that's 10 feet tall, because that's what I do. When I get upset or when I get stressed out or when I need to just decompress now, I've got wood and I got a stack of pine logs. But that's the same kind of lifestyle there. When you're living that, it's, you know, you don't get on your phone and argue with people that you don't know on social media, which I used to do. Somebody make a comment or something dumb, and half the time it was a joke, and I took it the wrong way because I was insecure. But I don't stew over that anymore. I stew over how sharp my axe is, and it's just like, you know, I think those people like you and Logan and, you know, millions of other Americans that live like this, I think people, and you're seeing an exodus. A lot more people are going, maybe I should have a freezer full of meat and a freezer full of produce, and, you know, maybe I should have this stuff because
maybe I should be a producer, not a consumer.
And that's it. We can do we'll have to do a whole nother podcast. Maybe go, you know, I'll come down to Texas with Jay Hill.
Exactly.
And we could do a podcast with Jay.
Go to the farm where Jay Hill,
and talk about actual producers, because
I figure you probably know who Jay Hill is. He, if you're listening, he's a great guy. Lives out around Del City. He farms about 20-something thousand acres. Intensive farming. He's got some cows now. He's, you know, the dude is a fetcher and a getter.
Yes,
there's no doubt about it. He is a very intelligent fella. He knows what he's doing, where he's going, and how he's going to get there. And we've become friends with him over the last few years. And great guy. I've been out there, and, you know, that's another deal that I represent is Chaffee, which he owns and distributes it's a premium alfalfa silage that's got probiotics and prebiotics in it. And I feed my horses that as well as the ProVantage tub. And anyways, there's a lot of cool stuff that's happened because of social media, and I've got to meet a lot of folks because of social media. You know, I mean, it's one of them deals where I told a guy in the coffee shop this morning, I'd have bet him $1 million if he told me I would have done what I've done just because I met you. You know, own a coffee shop, or part owner in a coffee shop, an apparel store, you know, and everything that's come along with that. I would have bet him $1 million that I didn't have, that he was dead wrong, that I wouldn't. I mean, hell, I punch cows for a living, you know. I cowboy for a living, and that's what I want to do, train a few horses.
And that's why I asked, because it's your Instagram and social media has stayed positive from the get-go. And I think that's important. Like, yeah, can you get on there and be a dickhead and a shitbird?
Oh, yeah,
and,
no doubt.
And spew hate. And again, I've been part of that political stuff, whatever it is. That's great if you got an opinion. But in the grand scheme of things, nobody gives a fuck about your opinion unless it's positive anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it is what it is.
Like, you're just wasting time. You're wasting valuable time.
Yeah,
and we don't have a whole lot of it. Every second that clicks by is just a second you're not going to get back. So, you know, I mean, I've kind of learned, too, that it's all good to, you know, have security and have some money in the bank. And somebody asked me, said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They asked me that the other day, and I say, you know, I don't have any idea, because 5 years ago, if you'd asked me that, I couldn't have told you this is where I would be right now.
You and me both.
And so, you know, as long as I can pay my bills, as long as I can have a roof over my head and my kids, you know, taken care of and tended to, and he has what he needs, you know, nothing in excess, but he has what he needs, food on the table and clothes on his back and a roof over his head. You know, as long as I can do that and I can go live some experiences, whether they be in Arizona or whether they be in Montana, or, you know, if I get to travel and see and do and work and enjoy my life, that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
Know?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm at in my life, you know, and that's, you know, I don't have to have $1 million in the bank. I don't have to drive the fanciest car. I don't have to have a big house. I don't need a big house because, hell, I don't like cleaning the little one I got.
No.
You know, so.
And last night was like, I kept saying to you, I kept apologizing. I'm like, you know, I just keep throwing logs in the fire in a tiny cabin in the middle of the mountains. I'm like, sorry, I'm not very exciting. And you're like, no, this is perfect. And we sat on the couch for 3 hours and didn't need to talk to each other or bullshit or talk about politics or anything. We just we just hung out like brothers. And
exactly.
You know, I don't think people do enough of that. Just slow down and relax and, you know, slow down and smell the roses, so to speak. I know you got to get on the road. You're hightailing it through Colorado and down to Arizona. Buster is driving around in a Ford
F350.
F350.
Yeah, four-door dually.
That's four-door dually that's painted with or wrapped with Schaefer Outfitters on one side, Bison Union on the other. It's got some American Hat Company stuff on it as well,
right,
and some other stuff. But if you see Buster driving around, a lot of people wouldn't go up to a cowboy or somebody hauling, you know, cows
come
or
up,
horses.
say hi.
Say hi. You know, you'll see
doubt.
Buster drives through a lot of the areas west of the Mississippi that people that listen to this program, if you see Buster at a rodeo, if you see him at the NFR, if you see him somewhere, go say hi. It'll be worth your time, I promise, and he won't ever forget you. I know you got to hit the road. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no
this
problem,
was
man.
just
Thank
an
you.
introduction to getting Buster. Buster's going to be a co-host of this along with Candace, and Candace's show is going to be a wild tornado. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
You know, Candace is Candace. I can't wait to hear her podcast because,
that'd be
you
awesome.
know, her do some of these podcasts, the Be The Bison Podcast, and you as well. It's not always going to be me running my mouth up here. It's going to be these guys doing some shows on their own. We'll do them together. We've got the Bison Union store in Bernie, Texas opening up in the next, 2 to 3 weeks. Buster will be there. I'll be there. Candace will be there, but Buster's going to be a regular guest on, not a guest, a co-host. So if you guys want stuff, ping him and see if you can, if you got guests or something you want from him for the ranch world or from the egg world. We have a lot of people. I think we're already going to try and get on a podcast with you that are more, and I probably won't be on those because I don't want to be on too much of the ranch stuff because I'm not a cowboy, but we're super excited about it. Love you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Love you.
For everybody out there, thanks for listening. Be the Bison and tell your dogs at home that we said hi.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. I forgot.
Yeah, go Chiefs.
We're wearing our Bison Union shirts for the Super Bowl, quietly wearing them because I don't want to jinx anybody, but I will say we made our ones last year and the Chiefs won the big game, so we're wearing them this year. I'm not going to wash mine. I'm wearing it every day. That's where this beautiful badger fur comes from. Yeah, I'm not shaving this until after the Super Bowl anyway. So go Chiefs. Chiefs and Chopper, baby. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Be safe out there.
Have a good one.